Well, good morning and welcome to Friday. It is Friday of our first week of digital school, so I hope everything has been going pretty well for you. Thank you for those of you who called me or emailed or different things. Just a few reminders. Number one, after 3:30 p.m., I cannot guarantee that I am going to be able to get to that. I usually do come home, but I love to take naps, and so sometimes I'm taking naps or doing other things, and I will not always be able to get to an email or Miss Jabs, I have a question on this after school as much as I can between those hours of 8:30 and 3:30. So if you can do anything between 8:30 and 3:30 and you want to hang time, by the way, I put that video up to kind of show you where that is if you haven't used it yet. Maybe check that out. Please, please, please be checking facts. This first week, I've really just tried to stay on top of putting in attendance points. The reason you get attendance points is by watching this and listening, and you don't just get a point for emailing and say, Miss Jabs, I watched it. As we go throughout the video, there's usually something in there that I'm like, hey, do this today. And so right now, again, I'm going to ask you to send me an email for today. Don't send it yet, but you're going to date this email March 20th because that's what today is. And there's going to be about 2 or 3 times throughout this video where I ask you a question and I'm going to say, hey, go back over to that email and put this in. So number one, I've been getting prayer requests. That is not number one. But at the top of your email, if you want to continue to add any prayer requests, like I said, I won't necessarily always pray for them on video, but I do pray for them when I get them. So Heavenly Father, just please be with us today. It is going to be a long 3 weeks right now trying to get through this digital school. Please be with us as we're working on every class, and there's always requirements and things we're supposed to be doing. Help us to work through those things. Help us to know that our teachers are there for us as a resource, and we can call them and try to talk to them and help us to continue for our knowledge to move forward. And please be with anybody who is ill. Please be with anybody who is in quarantine and help them to be able to recover. And if they're just in quarantine, stay away and free of the illness. And please be with us until we are all back together in the classroom. It's in your name we pray. Amen. All right, yeah, so a couple things. There are a few of you who have been emailing me homework, and it's kind of funny because if I'm saying this on the video, I don't think it's going to reach them. But thank you for those of you who are watching the video, kind of studying through it, and then working on the homework. If most of the time, you guys know this, my homework matches up a lot with my lectures. And so, like, if you watch the lecture, there's something you can go back to in the video, now that I'm doing the videos, and compare that for when you're on the homework. So first of all, I would like to look at this picture over here. This is not a similarity problem because I actually put these marks on here. And so since these marks are on here, these mean these are congruent. Once again, a box in a corner means perpendicular or 90 degrees. There was a few of you yesterday, you're like, what do those red arrows on that problem mean? I wish I was in class right now because I would say, who would like to tell me? Courtney? Oh, thank you, Courtney. She reminded us that those red arrows on those things mean that those lines are parallel. And so if you see those red arrows, just remember my mom teaches kindergarten, and therefore we're looking for N's or Z's, but we can only look for those N's or Z's if we know they're parallel, and those red lines let us know that they're parallel. So back to this congruence thing right here. What did these 2 marks right here mean? Oh yeah, that would mean those 2 are congruent. These 2 boxes mean they're both 90 degrees. These 2 mean these 2 are congruent. So in this, I know 3 congruence statements. And since I know 3 congruent statements, that's when we used to pick up our pen or pencil and we would write like SSS, SAS, whatever one we wanted to pick. Well, I shouldn't say pick, but matched our diagram. Well, we're now doing similarity. We're not doing congruence. So I think it gets some of you a little bit tripped up when all you have to have, first of all, if any diagram, sorry, I know it's near the bottom over here, and I'm probably going to slide in front of it when I move and start doing other things as well. Our safe list for similarity, you only have to mark 2 angles. However, those 2 angles have to be the same. Some of you might want to reopen up yesterday's homework and look at number 3. if two angles in one triangle are congruent to two angles in another triangle, then the two triangles will be similar. Not congruent, they will be similar. All right? SSS. Yeah, think back to this diagram I had right here. If you could mark it, and that's something that we can't do because they're not congruent. So we really don't want to do this. But sometimes it helps our minds. This is an example from yesterday, already filled in. By the way, think of you for those of you who ask, and I added it. Even though on the homework it just says like triangle such and such is similar and then leaves a blank, and underneath it does not say by whatever, you must write that on your homework. Okay, so even though there's not the blank that I started out with by and then what's there, once again, if they are not similar, don't fill anything in, just say cannot be proven, not similar, not enough information. Just let me know that you know for some reason. So since we can't mark these as congruent, I would like you to look at this one and tell me, this is yesterday's paper, so you don't need to copy it down. Tell me what 3 parts you see. All right, I heard a couple people say it's side, side, side. Sorry, I always forget how that red pink pen doesn't show up the greatest on here. Would you please tell me how this triangle is marked? Good. First of all, are both of them marked side, side, side? So that gives us a big hint that it could be side, side, side similarity. But please remember, in order for them to be similar, I would now have to like divide out each ratio, all 3 ratios, and see if I get the same decimal. All right, so just very quickly, these were my examples from yesterday. How would you mark, or what parts would you say are in that triangle? And remember, we had to mark this because of vertical angles. All right, so that would be side, angle, side. Do you see how I can't really make, side, angle, side. Do you see how I can't really make the marks? Because they're not the same. But if I write like SAS, it probably helps me out. So let me make sure to put down that pink pen so when I am writing on our examples from today, that we're doing okay. All right. So I think that's the first thing I'm going to ask on this next paper then. Would you please pause, and after you're done drawing those, go ahead and hit unpause, but would you please think about how I should mark this if, again, I needed to make marks like this? Good, I heard somebody say it looks like we should mark SAS. So I'm going to mark SAS on both of them. And sorry, I realized I forgot to put this. So I'm going to add this to it right now. And since this will look a little bit more like the homework then, I'm just going to write triangle U, my fault, WUV is similar to. Now remember, just because I wrote that does not necessarily mean that it is. Now if we look over here, is SAS on my safe list? Yes, it is. So I could have a SAS similarity, but there's 2 things we have to make sure then since it's SAS. One, is the angle the same? The angle must be the same. Sorry, I know that might be hard to read, but if I zoom in there a little bit, 44, 44. Angles are the same. Sides must be proportional. And I did put 2 examples again where we have the hourglass bow tie type picture to talk about what I said yesterday, because a couple people asked, like, how come one time you divided one way and one time the other way? Please remember, every triangle should have like a short, medium, and long side. Now, since we only have 2 sides marked, I can only ask what's the smaller number, what's the bigger number. So if you look in this triangle, what number is smaller and what number is bigger? All right, so on the triangle that was on my diagram on the left, 32 was smaller and 36 was bigger, okay? What about my other triangle? Okay, 16 is smaller and 18 is bigger. So we've now got to set up ratio Both small numbers should be in a ratio. Both big numbers should be in a ratio. And it does not matter if I go right to left, left to right. Big small number over small big number. Is that making sense? If not, please make sure you ask me. And so it looks like my small numbers would either be 32 over 16 or 16 over 32. I'm going to do 32 over 16 because I know what that equals already. 2. That means the other one I also have to do that way. And bigger over smaller, or excuse me, bigger number over bigger smaller number, if you know what I mean, would be 36 over 18. And that might be one, again, that you might need to pull out a calculator for, but yep, that equals 2. So when I typed in both of my ratios, did they equal the same thing? Then these two triangles are similar. Please be careful about what order the triangles are listed in again. The first one started out at W, which happens to be an unmarked angle, went down to U, which was the marked angle, and back up to V. But again, because I wrote these notes here, it passed over the bigger value first and then the smaller value second. So if I would line that up, since this is bigger right here, our triangle would be SQR. Triangle SQR. And we did prove them similar. And we proved them similar by SAS. And thank you yesterday. I think I did on most of them. But we should always write SAS similarity, right? Because usually when we write SAS, our mind kind of jumps right away to congruence. All right. Would you look at this one, please? Oh, let me do one thing before I hit pause. So now you should be able to hit pause. I had forgotten to put that triangle congruence thing on there. So we are now trying to look at it. Would you again think all the way back to when we were making marks, and would you please tell me what this would be marked? Yep, SAS. Now on my first diagram, I had marked 44 and 44. We know those numbers are equal. I know my drawing looks funny. That's supposed to be a hash mark, just one single hash mark. My angles on this one are marked congruent. So I already know they're congruent. So we're looking for SAS. The angles are congruent, so that's good. We now have to look at the ratio of our sides. And so if we look at the ratio of our sides, what's the smaller number of these two? Okay? And what's the bigger number of those two? Since I mentioned those first, I'm going to write those in the numerator. So I'm going to write 84, I'm going to write 84 on top. And then look at this. What's the smaller number between these two? Thank you, 132. So I put the smaller numbers in a ratio. I'm now going to have to put the bigger numbers in a ratio. And that would give me 118 over 187. Now, before I just knew what 32 divided by 16 was. I don't care if you had to take out a calculator. So question number 1. What type of calculator do you use? This is a different looking one, but some of you actually have like a physical calculator you use. Some of you end up using your phone. Some of you end up using Desmos. Maybe you just use the phone that is on the, the calculator that is on the Chromebook. I really don't care, but question number 1 is what type of calculator do you use? Okay? How, when I ask you to type something in, are you finding that value? Just because sometimes, as I've done before in class, different calculators work different ways, and I kind of want to know what you're using. So if I, on my calculator here, type in 84 divided by 132, it might be an ugly decimal. Sometimes it repeats nice. This one kind of repeats nice. It's 0.63636363, and that pattern continues. I've got to make sure that the other ratio is equal to that. So what is 118 divided by 182? It's not 0.6363. And don't say, well, Miss Jabs, if we rounded those both, they would both round the same. First of all, they wouldn't both round the same. But second of all, in order for these to be proportional, those decimals must entirely match. Right now I got 0.648351648. Those don't match. Are these two ratios equal? They're not equal. I would say not similar. And you can either write just not similar. You would say not proportional, maybe, something like that. Okay? So now for two bow tie examples. Hopefully these go pretty quick. I try to make the videos not too long and stuff. So when I look at this, anytime, sorry, pause, but anytime you see a bow tie, you can already automatically mark your vertical angles, okay? So it looks like all of my examples today are gonna be SAS. Please do not think that is always going to be the answer. So I already marked them. This is the part where yesterday I said a couple things and people said, but Miss Jabs, you did it both ways when you were doing it. I just wanted to tell people that you should not assume you know that. I've been saying that all year. You should not assume anything. And so does anybody see this line from B to N here? I should not assume the chunk that is on this part of BN matches up with the chunk right here of BN. That means I might not be considering 10 and 18 together. Remember, I've got to look at each triangle. So in this top triangle, please, sorry, it's kind of getting bent over. What would you tell me is the smaller number of those two? It has nothing to do with lining up and going from B to N and C to M. That has nothing to do with it. What is the smaller number? Okay? And what's the bigger number? Now remember, that is just right now with having two sides only. If I had three sides, I could do small, medium, large. But would you agree right now in that top triangle, my small number was 18, my big number was 28. Sorry, my 8 ended up not looking the greatest, so I had to rewrite it. All right, now look at this bottom triangle. In that bottom triangle, what's the smaller of the two numbers? It does happen to be the 10, so it does line up with each other this time. This time, I did want to put the 18 with the 10 because these are the two smaller numbers in their respective triangles. Okay? In this in this triangle, 18 is small. In this triangle, 10 is small. So comparing the two triangles and what's supposed to be the smallest, and that's what I'm supposed to be comparing, that would be my ratio. Now, 18 divided by 10, oh yeah, that was an easy division, but sometimes it's okay, we all need to do it, is 1.8. 28 divided by 14 is 2. Do those match? Okay, not similar. I'm sorry, I didn't write it on the paper. All right, this is another bow tie. Pause if you need to. But what can we mark at any time there's a bow tie? So as soon as you had it drawn, we could also mark in our vertical angles. And once again, we have to maybe be a little bit careful. Look at this side. What is the smaller number? Okay, look at this side. What is the smaller number? Notice this time, the numbers that are on this same line together do not match up. What is the smaller number? Okay, yep, I agree. We could have put it either way. We could have said 9 and 27 or 27 and 9. And I bet as soon as I said 27 and 9, some of you are like, oh yeah, Miss Jabs, let's write 27 divided by 9 because I already know what that is. Me too. Sorry. So since we put 27 over 9 because those were the smaller numbers, our bigger numbers would be 30 over 10. And that one, I don't think you need a calculator for, but if you do, I don't feel bad. 27 divided by 9 is 3. 30 divided by 10 is 3. Those two would be similar. So since I forgot to write it, let's just say I would call on somebody, but I can't. So what if I first put triangle RPQ? If I first put triangle RPQ, when I go from R to P, first of all, P is in the middle of the bow tie. So for the second one, we better be in the middle of the bow tie. R to P is 30, which is the bigger number, which means I should start at D. Thank you. I should start at D because D to P would pass over the bigger number first, and then I would go to C. And of course, we did prove those two parts proportional. And so that means this one, again, would be SAS. So I know I said some point throughout the video, I have two questions. My second question, I said sometimes 2 to 3. Today it's only going to be 2. I couldn't remember at the beginning of what I said, but the second question today is, there's days where I can only do one video. There's days where I need to do like 2 days, like let you try it, redo it. After I spoke again today on doing triangle similarities and using these things, did it feel better today? Because I know yesterday was a little bit confusing. Please tell me if things seem cleared up today, and you're going to feel a little bit better about today's homework assignment. Thanks, guys. I'm missing you. Have a good weekend.